What's up, everybody? It's John with JohnKill3 Gaming here, and I just want to ask one simple question to you guys. Which Spider-Man do you think is the best? And I'm not talking about the films. The films were good in their own right, whether there was the Sam Raimi trilogy, or the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, and unfortunately we can't call that a trilogy because Amazing Spider-Man 3 was canceled. So we're going to talk about the two video games, the second in their series of games. Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out on the PlayStation 4, while we all know that original Spider-Man 2 came out on PS2, Xbox, and the GameCube. But which game not only had the best form of how they told their story, which game had the best rogue gallery of villains? Because let's be honest, sometimes we just want to play a Spider-Man game to see the villains, or if they do have a good story, we'll be impressed. Because I still feel the Web of Shadows game and Edge of Time and Shadow Dimensions had the better Spider-Man stories, but those weren't movie licensed. Those were their own original Spider-Man story games. So this is all about the movie licensed ones. Because I know movie licensed games get a bad rep, but let's take a closer look at, do they really deserve the hate they get? Did they actually try? Or really, is it really just to catch a quick dollar to capitalize on the success of the films? So let's get off right on the back. In Spider-Man 2, let's just go down the list of the villains that are in it. This is just a handful of them. We have, Rhino, which Rhino is just a throwaway villain. We had Shocker, who was in both Spider-Man 1 and 2 on the PlayStation 2. Mysterio, throwaway fight. Just like he is in the comics to me. I just don't like him. It all culminates to your battle with Doc Ock, who's not only the lead villain in the film, he'd be in the game. But for Amazing Spider-Man 2, we have Kraven the Hunter, which is, I think, my second time ever seeing him in a game. We have Electro from the film, the blue version. He didn't take any different alters. Harry Osborn's the Green Goblin, who actually had the most entertaining fight to me in the game. And Carnage himself. Whether people say he's just thrown in, his boss battle was still pretty challenging. Now, let's look at Spider-Man 2 very closely and what we all enjoyed about it. This was the first Spider-Man game that gave us true freedom. I mean, freedom. I've never seen at the time a Spider-Man game give us this much freedom in the world. Spider-Man, the whole time, from both the PlayStation to the side-scrolling Super Nintendo games, even the Game Boy games, and even the first movie version of the game, they were only either a semi-open world or they were linear adventures. Spider-Man 2 gave you true freedom in Manhattan to swing, to help against petty crimes, go as high as you want, go anywhere you want in the city. I mean, when we felt this freedom, when we were all kids and played this game, because this was the go-to game for us. Anybody or any kid at that time that wanted a PS2, you wanted Spider-Man 2. If not more than just to swing around and know what it's like to be Spider-Man. This was considered the first game to actually let you feel that you are Spider-Man himself. I know all the other games today, superhero games, they'll say, be this person. You could finally be this person. Be him, be that. Especially the Batman Arkham games. They're like, be the Batman. Well, we've been the Batman so many damn times. Spider-Man is a whole different experience. I mean, the velocity of which you swing, the controls at the time, for him, were really great. I even still have my PS2 now with this game, and I still play it, and it still makes me remember why I loved this game. Yes, today, you can say today and look back as adults and say, yeah, it wasn't the most visually impressive, but think about it back then. The limitations of older consoles. This was as good as a Spider-Man game got to us. I mean, The only other free roam Spider-Man game that was on the PS2 was Ultimate Spider-Man. And those graphics were not bad because they actually used the comic book graphics. And comic book gaming graphics never look bad. I mean, look at Borderlands 2 or the Borderlands series. They have comic book looking graphics. So they're not nothing to complain about. Spider-Man 2 had great voiceover work from the cast of the film, even the villains, both returning and both villains that are first introduced into this game. But the difference is, the cons with this game was it did follow the movie too closely, because everyone always cons that it follows the movie faithfully when it should have told an original story. But it told the movie story in an original way, not only adding villains to the game that weren't in the film, because Doc Ock is obviously the main focus. He's obviously going to get the most attention. He had the best boss battles in this game and the most challenging, where someone like Rhino, he was only a tutorial to boss battles. Black Cat, she wasn't a boss battle in this game, and she was more like helping you out. Shocker had about say, a fairly average boss battle. You know, it concludes his story that was in the first Spider-Man game, and I was fine with it. But Doc Ock, when it comes to the battle at the bank, which is replicated in the game, the battle on the train, which is actually the best version of the fight in this game, and the final battle, which is kind of like a mixture of the first two fights, it's just the difficulty factor in that one is more annoying than it is genuine challenge, because it is cheesebally. And then you can go around saving different civilians, you know, from falling off rooftops, stop cars from being stolen, hijackings, anything you could have thought of. At the time, no one thought of it as being repetitive, but when you look at it today, you could tell the mission layouts, not the story missions. The story missions were actually very different in their own right, especially as much as Mysterio was wasted, he was being set up to be a boss battle. He had the best mission setups, in my opinion. I liked the Mysterio setup, and then when you beat his ass in the store, which was the dumbest way to finish it, just one punch, taking down 3 life bars. Come on, how would you feel? So, Spider-Man 2, with its controls, its gameplay, everything about it was just amazing, so to speak. Not leading into Amazing Spider-Man 2 anyway. But there was another part to this game that I thought was done good at the time, was the game's cutscenes. And every Marvel game, we already know, they're going to open up with the Marvel logo, the logo of the company working on the game, and if I believe, wasn't it Activision that developed, or not developed, or promoted these games? I don't know what they did at the time, because that was a time where I just, we were young, we didn't focus on who did it, we just wanted it. But the CGI cutscenes for both Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2, they were done really, really well. I enjoyed how they look. It was as close to, not as close to the movie, because, still a video game, but to replicate scenes from the film, they did it really well, especially with all the voice actors returning. When I saw these cutscenes for the first time when I was playing, I was like, holy shit. This was actually really cool. And even it made Mysterio, God, I gotta keep mentioning freaking Mysterio. It made Mysterio look threatening, even though he is not threatening to me at all. I just wish that it would do one thing. They didn't play none of the musical scores from the film, which was disappointing to say the least. I wish they would have took certain cues. I mean, yes, they recreate the film scenes in the cutscenes, and the models were good. By today's standards, people are going to bitch and complain at the models, especially the younger generation now who looks back at these games. They're going to bitch and complain. But to us back then, this was as close as we got to real good movie tie-in games with its CGI cutscenes. They did take liberties when liberties were needed, especially how Doc Ock, no, not how Doc Ock got his claws, but how the scene with the reactor going off, Spider-Man, you having to stop the machine, Because that's basically the first boss battle is the machine. You have to stop the machine from blowing everybody to smithereens. And when you look at these cutscenes today, you're going to think, is this what you guys really enjoyed back then? Hey, a Spider-Man fan today will tell you that this is what Spider-Man was to us. This is how it was in our eyes. Until we got a taste of future Spider-Man games that actually tried to resemble more of the comics than the films, which was good, but still to this day, no one has been able to say, oh, Spider-Man 2 is bad. Nope, it is not. But there have been some Spider-Man dubs along the way. Now, some of the cutscenes are questionable. Okay, when they're not replicating the film, here's an example. When the cutscenes aren't replicating the film and they're trying to replicate in-game action, yeah, then it looks kind of wonky and kind of shitty, so to speak. Especially the introductions to the villains like Rhino. They looked very bad. I mean, he's jumping around, not even like a rhino. He just looks like an asshead in a metal suit. That's the best way I can see of it. But, I mean, it fits the Rhino character. He's a dumbass. No matter what you could do, Rhino will not scare us in a video game. But then, when it comes to the film scenes, unfortunately, in certain film scenes, they do suffer. Like the bank sequence, when Doc Ock comes to rob the bank. You can see a clear difference between the CGI gaming cutscenes and the in-game cutscenes. I mean, they tried. They tried, and I cannot blame them because the in-game cutscenes trying to replicate the film scenes without making them CGI was very difficult, I can imagine. I just wish that maybe there could have been a different way to do this. You know, scenes with Shocker was another thing. Shocker was... his close-up scenes were just butt ugly. I'm sorry to say. And these are just the few cons I have with the game. It's a mixed bag of both cutscenes looking really good and cutscenes making you wonder, okay, is this a PS1 game or a PS2 game? I'm pretty sure the PC version at the time probably was better because they can modify the graphics to whatever they wanted. But a lot of us played it on the console. That's what we were used to playing Spider-Man on, was consoles. I don't think I could have tried to play on the PC. Not trying to knock the PC or not trying to talk shit, but I'm just saying, I can imagine how hard it is to swing with a keyboard and mouse and buttons. So, those were the goods and the cons I had with Spider-Man 2. Just the gameplay, the presentation. It's a 50, actually, it's not a 50-50. It's a 70-30. 70% of the game did its absolute best and it succeeded. The other cons I talked about, they're the 30%. It still gives the game a good level of score, and I can still see as a grown man now looking back at the game, some of us overlooked that 30% because yes, we were kids. We didn't know no better. It was badass to us. It was cool to us just to see it. We weren't going to complain on how it was. We just wanted to say, boom, boom, fight, fight, punch, punch, Spider-Man, villains. We got the game we wanted as kids. So, now that Spider-Man 2 has been covered, the basis, let's look at the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Amazing Spider-Man 2, yes, even though people say it looks like shit on next generation consoles, when it comes to versing the old game, yes, it does look better than the old game. By a bit. Not by much, but by a bit. And Spider-Man's combat is based around Arkham City, or Arkham Asylum, or whatever, the Batman Arkham games. That's how the combat is presented. Where in the Spider-Man game, it was more so combos you can pull off. This game is a combination of combos that you can level up and earn, because the leveling up system in this game is far more different than the old, where you can just go buy them at a store, which the novelty of going to the store was really cool. This one, you just upgrade them in your menu. Now, it takes the old pedestrian missions where you get to save people, they actually add a slight cinematic experience to it, especially when it came to the car chases. In the old one, all you did was just beat up the car, the villains get out, and you just fight. Just fight them in the street, knock them out. This one actually has a little bit more stakes and some quick timing. You have to stop the criminals from driving, or stop someone holding the hostage, web back to the car, take the guy out of the seat, and then you can save the hostage. And you all have to do this within a driving limit, because if they get too far while driving, they will get away. And every time you succeed in a pedestrian mission, your hero system will go up from menace to heroic, and you'll be viewed in the public as a hero. I just don't like those little Daily Bugle quibbits at the end. They're just annoying. Those little news report things just get on my nerves. Now, how is it roaming around the city as Spider-Man? And how does this Manhattan vary from the old Manhattan? They're roughly the same size. Obviously, this Manhattan looks slightly more detailed than the old one, but I'm not going to give cons to that game because, remember, the limitation of the console at the time. But Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 should have done more. It's a 50-50 when it comes to giving you a presentable city and still recycling some areas. And it has a slight bit of pop-in and bugs, but when you're swinging so fast around the city, you can barely notice it. Unless you're really paying attention, you won't notice it. Like I said, because in Spider-Man 2, there was some bugs and glitches there, but you didn't notice it at the velocity you were swinging. And Spider-Man's swinging controls are actually slightly much better in this game than in the old. But like I said, limitations of old hardware. The one plus in this game, though, you can play with different costumes. That's something the old game was missing, and that's something that this game does addition you with. You can unlock other spider costumes. And I know a lot of people will just find maybe one or two costumes, maybe three they'll switch between, but the novelty that they're there is good. The fact that they're there to give you a choice of what you want to play with and what you want to use, and each suit has its own stats, and you can level them up for different effects. I mean, we all missed Cosmic Spider from the PlayStation 1 games. We have Iron Spider, Noir Spider, which is my personal favorite, at World's End, and Electro Proof. These do have some benefits, but not much unless it comes to boss battles. Now, boss battles in Amazing Spider-Man 2, though very little, you can do slightly more on these than you can do in the old. The only thing that made the old ones what people enjoyed, but they still tend to ignore, is it had a cheap factor. This one, though the enemy movements can be predictable, they are flashy, they are fast, especially during the QuickTime events. And my favorite one is actually not recorded, I wish I could have recorded, was the Electro Battle, because it actually uses the whole city as a battlefield. Unlike the Goblin one where you're confined to a particular pattern and movement, the Electro Battle is actually very fast paced and something you'd expect from a Spider-Man game. So that's something that this Spider-Man game does hold over the old one. The old one had more bosses, but they relatively played the same except for the Doc Ock ones. This one had less bosses and actually gave you slightly more variety factor. And like I said, I was going to talk about the Spider-Man 2 boss battle. This is the train one, and how it differs from the other boss battles in the game. Because this one not only did pay close attention to the battle in the movie, this one, you lived the battle. The battle that was filmed in the movie was very well done. But let's see, we all wanted to play the battle. We all wanted to know what it was like to kick Doc Ock in his four-armed clawed ass. So how does his boss battle work compared to the Amazing Spider-Man 2's like Electro or Goblin battle? You have a little bit more free roam here, but this battle is confined to the train. And the difference is Doc Ock in this battle has a somewhat predictable pattern, and yet he doesn't have a predictable pattern. You have to basically just dodge his swings, dodge the claws, go into Spider Sense mode until you lower his health. So Doc Ock's battle was the only good boss battles in the old game. Now that I look back at it, the other boss battles either were average or there was wasted opportunities. And we all know which ones were wasted opportunities. I mentioned them earlier, Rhino, Shocker, Mysterio for one. I think there was another boss battle. I think there was a couple more boss battles in regular Spider-Man 2. I don't remember. If you guys remember the game better than I do, leave them in the comments below. So, what do I think? Which one is better? That is a tough one because, believe it or not, even though people hated the Amazing Spider-Man 2 game, it had things that were above the original Spider-Man 2 game, and there's things in the original Spider-Man 2 game that were above the current one. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but there is no winner. In movie tie-in games and in Spider-Man games, they are both the same, in my opinion. They are both equal. One does certain things better than the other, and one thing does better things than the other, and I'm sure you know what they are. Okay? I'm sure people are going to be different on opinion, and that's fine. That's all fine and dandy. All opinions are different. But now, with a new Spider-Man game on the horizon for the PlayStation 4, done by a different company, maybe the future for this Spider-Man game will actually surpass the Spider-Man games of the past. Because that's what we want. And with Insomniac behind it, who has good games, and how detailed this Spider-Man world looks, this might change the face and future of movie tie-in games. It's debatable whether it is a movie tie-in or not, because I believe it is, but you never see this much effort put into a movie tie-in game. The game so far looks beautiful. It sounds beautiful. I wonder what villains we are going to see. This game is on the horizon, and hopefully this will change the face of Spider-Man games. And Spider-Man, no matter what, you throw Spider-Man on something, it's going to sell, okay? But we can all only hope to know that this game will be good. We can all hope it's going to be good. It looks amazing. It could look amazing, and then it could be shitty. That's what we once thought. But hey, who knows? But anyway, guys, this is John with John Kill 3D Gaming. If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know. Like and subscribe. I want your guys' opinion on what Spider-Man game you enjoyed the most between these two games. So, Amazing Spider-Man 2, regular Spider-Man 2.